Rain hit the window of the hardware store as the little bell above the door rang to signal the arrival of a new customer. A tall, dark-haired woman in her early 30s entered the local small-town shop and shook off the wet from the weather. She scanned the store and saw the shopkeeper and two very gruff-looking men had obviously stopped mid-conversation as she had entered and were now gawping at her. "Do you have chains? Padlocks?" she inquired to the man behind the counter. "Well, yes we do, sweetie," pointing, "aisle 6, next to the fencing supplies." "What do you need them for?" he asked with a smirk. "Can I help you with anything?" The three men were sniggering like morons as they watched her move towards the items she wanted. LITA was unconventionally attractive, with dark brown eyes and long, straight, jet black hair. She was athletic and broad-shouldered. She selected a large roll of chain and felt its sturdiness. "Can I get a hand here, mate? I need 6 meters of this, and I'll take 2 of these large locks as well. Thank you." The older gent behind the counter sighed the sigh of a man who did not want to move, for what he deemed to be such a petty purchase. Obviously some sort of artsy-fartsy project, he thought. He saw these type of people come into the hardware store occasionally, and they annoyed the hell out of him with their projects. LITA headed back to the yellow Volkswagen Golf with her purchase. She was parked next to a large 4-wheel drive that was covered in mud. Hooks and chains hung clanking from a lighting bar above the roof on the obvious hunting vehicle. Barking erupted from the back of the truck from 2 dogs, stretching the chains to their limits. Although her purchase was quite heavy, and the man behind the counter had offered his help, as he was not devoid of all manners, she had no trouble at all lifting the 50 kilograms or so of chain and the 2 hefty locks. As she loaded up her car, she heard the front door of the hardware store tinkle open. One of the men yelled at the dogs, "Shut up!" The car suspension lowered a tad as she put the items in the back seat. LITA got in the driver's side, started her car, backed out of the parking space and started on her journey. Sunshine broke through a momentary hole in the cloud cover. It was late afternoon and the bright light made her squint to see the road ahead. She felt its warmth on her face and it felt good. She was a little out of town now and admiring the beauty of the trees as she coasted down the slightly windy road. That is when she heard the roar of an engine. She looked in her rear view, only to see the white, muddy Rodeo's bull bar for a moment. The truck smashed into the back of the little yellow car with force. LITA lost control as she overcorrected from the collision. The little yellow Volkswagen went tumbling into a ditch violently. The car came to rest, suddenly, the right way up. The airbag had deployed on the side, safety glass was everywhere as she felt warm blood running down her face as a dirty hand reached in, holding a stiff, dirty rag that smelt like oil and something else. The rag covered her mouth and nose. She felt lightheaded for a moment and then everything went black. Corey had just finished unhooking the wrecked Volkswagen they had towed back to the shack. He had given Ricky just one job to do, tie the girl up so she couldn't get away. Ricky stepped out onto the veranda rolling a cigarette, screen door squealing shut behind him. "All done, Ricky?" Corey asked his dim-witted sidekick. "Done as a doodle," Ricky retorted, and they both laughed at this. "The sun's going down, mate. Let's crack a tinny, put on some akadaka and have some fun." The sound of a window smashing out the back of the old ramshackle hut rang out. Corey glared at his mate. "You wanker, can't you do anything right?" They both ran inside, but it was too late. The remains of the wooden chair LITA had been tied to were strewn everywhere, and the rope that had bound her to the chair was on the floor. The window was completely smashed out, and the crusty remains of the curtains blew in the light breeze. Corey hung his head out of the square hole in the wall where a window had once been. All he could see was the dirt track leading through the pine forest out the back. It was hard to see, as the sun had gone down and everything looked grey. There was no sign of the girl. "Get the dogs, knobhead. We're going hunting." God rays from the spotlight shone through the tree line. The V8 engine of the pickup growled to a low rumble, the whole time the light scanned through the foliage. Light constantly shifting as it pivoted from its point on top of the vehicle, keeping its operator hidden behind the light. The truck moved slowly, branches and brush cracking under its weight. LITA stopped moving and lay low behind a large pine tree as the light came her way, pine needles uncomfortably pricking into her exposed flesh. She was not wearing much, as her clothes, wet from light rain, had been torn to tatters. Pain shot up from the soles of LITA's bare feet. "Oh Jesus, they can see me," she thought as the truck slowed. The light scanned overhead for what felt like the longest second of her life. "You can run all you like," a man's voice yelled from the truck. "We will find you." She looked to the sky. Light cold rain spat in her face. The moon was hidden behind a layer of cloud. Navigating these woods was hard enough during the day, but in the dark, every step was met with clawing branches and sharp bramble. The pickup truck rumbled to a stop, and the engine went quiet. The ticking sound from the change of temperature to the engine echoed through the trees, and the light, still reaching out into the darkness, looking for her. "There's some ripped cloth hanging from that branch over there, Corey. Get the dogs out, brother." The sound of the door slamming so loud in the still of the night. LITA was trying to control her breathing, which was not only proving impossible, but she felt like it was every bit as loud as the sounds coming from the men in the truck. That's when she heard the barking. She heard more cracking branches as the men followed the noses of the canine trackers, moving towards her. "I have to move," she thought as they got closer. "Now!" She got up and started running. Every step was met with pain. The dogs went berserk. "Where is she, Goldie? Where is she, boy?" "Shine the light over there, Ricky," Corey ordered his slow-witted friend. Ricky did as he was instructed. "There she is, Corey. I see her. I see her." Light from the truck bathed LITA as she ran, the sound of the barking dogs getting closer. She fell hard, not understanding why she had stopped running so suddenly. She never heard the crack of the hunting rifle as the bullet tore through her upper thigh. She only felt searing pain as she lay on the forest floor. I got her, Ricky." LITA rolled onto her back and looked up at the sky. She heard the man and his dogs almost upon her now. She screamed in agony into the night air. The scream turned into a howl, but not from the burning pain of the bullet, or the thought of being caught and murdered. The clouds had started to thin, allowing the light from the glorious full moon to shine through onto LITA's normally handsome features. Her face was contorting, shifting. The crack of bone under the skin could be heard, as loud as the crack of any branch underfoot or the dogs barking. Her change was rapid. Each part of her body, section by section, looked like when you grab a half-filled balloon too hard and it herniates between your fingers. Her hands and feet were first to morph as the change rippled over her with explosive, violent speed. The two dogs that were so intent on catching their prey moments ago went dead quiet, stood their ground, growling into the darkness, as their master, out of breath from running, caught up to them. "What's the matter, Goldie? Skitch him, girl." A deep, guttural growl cut through the trees and night air. Both dogs immediately put their tails between their legs and ran off into the darkness, whimpering. Corey heard the crack of branches in front of him. The light from the truck, like a lighthouse, rested on not one, but two figures. What he was looking at didn't register at first, his jaw gaping like an idiot, and his eyes bulging like a cartoon character. It looked just like a wolf, but it was standing like a person. The creature towered over him by at least a good 3 feet. He looked down at the grey furry clawed feet and slowly up until his gaze met with glowing yellow eyes and large white fangs covered in drool. 2 clawed giant hands reached out and grasped him around the waist, picking him up like a small child. He screamed a blood-curdling primal scream, laden with terror. The huge, hulking monster opened its maw and snapped into his neck like it was made of the same twigs that broke underfoot. Corey's head popped off like a cork. Thick, guttural blood poured from the stump where his head once was. The beast lifted his body and drank the warm, gushing fluid, black under the moonlight, in big, slurping gulps. Ricky let out a childlike screech. The wolf creature stopped drinking immediately, fixing its yellow-eyed gaze upon the spotlight's source. No, fuck no. Ricky fumbled with the bolt action on his rifle. Fear had taken over what reflexes he once had. The giant wolf monster leapt towards him in great bounds and closed distance with lightning speed. The rifle rang out as a huge clawed paw swiped at him. The bullet missing its target and only finding darkness. In one swing, his jaw came off like a broken toy. His tongue lolled where his mouth had once been, trying to say the word no. Only a gurgled, baby-like cry emitted from the gaping wound that he'd once called a mouth. The creature jumped on him, biting into his neck and feeding on his flesh as he twitched and thrashed, feeling every bite as his life drained from him. LITA howled at the moon and feasted.